I never thought about the universe, it made me feel small. Never thought about the problems of this planet at all. Global warming, radioactive sites, imperialistic wrongs, and animal rights. No!
Hey, it's July 22nd, 2015. This is episode 5 of the Built Podcast. For this episode, I called in a favor to a friend who I've worked with before. His name is Thor Snilsberg from CityScience. There aren't many organizations like CityScience, and if you're a science teacher, you should really pay special attention to this episode. CityScience is really unique. On their website, they say that they use the natural and built environment of cities as laboratories for active learning. I can attest to how great the organization is because I worked with them this last school year when I was teaching a science after-school program. I went in, Thor gave me a lot of really interesting things, really engaging activities and materials and lesson plans. So I have a lot of respect for the organization. I think they do a lot of wonderful things, and I think I see a lot of cool things happening in their future. So this episode, we'll talk with Thor a little bit about what they've done so far and what they're hoping to do in the future. And with that, here's my interview with Thor. I'm here with Thor from CityScience. Thank you very much for taking some time and talking with me today.
Thank you, Bill. It's great to be here.
So tell me, what is when you started CityScience, what was sort of like the hole that was missing, or what was sort of your goal, or what was not happening in New York City science that you thought, like, we need to do this?
Yeah, one of the main ideas behind CityScience is getting kids really excited about scientific exploration. Our tagline is to inspire exploration. And we were finding that science was something that was being taught in a textbook, and it was being taught about polar bears or rainforests. Well, New York City itself is a fascinating place, and there's a lot of great examples that we can learn from here. We're one of the 3 large bird migration corridors, is the Northeast Corridor here. We have amazing architecture and skyscrapers. Our bridges are really monuments to engineering and civil engineering. So these are all things, our harbor, the world's largest estuary, these are all things that I think can inspire kids to explore science and to get more passion behind their exploration.
So what does CityScience do? How do you connect? You connect with schools and you connect with after-school programs?
CityScience works K-8 primarily. We do break that rule sometimes and work in high school settings, but we really believe that we can build the capacity of lay teachers or generalists. I think a lot of science elementary teachers might feel less confident teaching science than they really should.
Elementary has to teach everything. I mean, I'm a former teacher, and we got to focus on one subject, where elementary has to kind of cover the whole spectrum mostly.
That's right, and I think that's actually an advantage for science, because science really connects to all parts of history. And what do scientists report doing with 50% of their time? Professional scientists are communicators, so they're writing, talking, and presenting. Those are classic youth development skills, language arts skills. You know, STEM, S-T-E-M, science, technology, engineering, and math, is the new acronym, the new buzzword, and math can be tied into any part of science. So what we're really trying to do is connect the dots and show that science relates to the city, your neighborhood, your community, but it also relates to other subjects.
So this is the first 5 years. What's in store for your next 5 years?
We've done a lot of work learning from our mistakes and also learning from our successes, so the first 5 years. So we're really simplifying our program model to just describe it as capacity building for K-8 educators in school and after school. So we focus on that area because that's where there's the largest shortage of certified science teachers, K-8 and after school. And what we really want to do is help teachers realize that they can model these scientific behaviors and go on these scientific explorations with their students. So we have 4 points of entry. At our lowest level, it's low or no cost, is our lending library. So we have well over 1,000 books that are available to teachers, and 200 or 300 science items that are really what I would call a must-have list for a junior high science department. So these are all free or small replacement cost if they're broken, I guess. But these are all available to teachers to check out and use. Our second level is student explorations. That's where our staff comes in and leads a class. So if you're an instructor in the classroom, you are really model teaching for that teacher. So it gives them a chance to sit back and see how students respond to this pedagogy of inquiry and project-based learning. Then we run the typical workshops. I think workshops are important, but maybe overdone historically. They're a little passive for our liking, but it's a great way to pass along content knowledge in science, technology, engineering, and math. And then our highest level is a partnership. So for 3 years now, we've been partnering with a middle school in Harlem, New Design Middle School, and we've worked with their science and math staff and building what science means at New Design Middle School. And at each grade level, they go from taking ownership of their classroom to taking ownership of their school to taking ownership of projects in their neighborhood to then thinking citywide. So 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade students at New Design Middle School are really trying to find ways to apply scientific learning and study in a larger and larger geography. Every year, middle schools are invited to apply for our partnerships where we match their investment in professional development. So schools that spend $15,000 on professional development with CityScience are matched by a $10,000 grant. So these are other ways we want to support schools who are doing great work and just need a boost.
If someone's listening, they want to be involved, what kind of things, who are you looking for and what would they be doing?
Bill, that's a really good question because we're talking about the first 5 years of CityScience and maybe the next 5 years. I think the common thread between those two is really volunteers. CityScience uses the city to teach science, and we really rely on professionals in all of the STEM fields to come and inform us of opportunities and help us connect with field trip opportunities, to guest speak in our classrooms. So really, we're always on the look for STEM professionals who are looking to volunteer in education settings, or even volunteer by coming into our office and working with our staff to scratch out ideas on the whiteboard, to comb through journal articles, to visit them at their office or their factory to see how their technologies may play into our classrooms. A fantastic example of a STEM professional who's really been helpful in the past is a parent of one of our volunteers. We had a high school volunteer, brothers, and they came in, and in the course of meeting their father, we learned that he worked at the Department of Transportation in one of their labs that monitors all the cameras that monitor the New York City streets. So a lot of people wouldn't think of this as a STEM connection immediately, but just running a lab with that many cameras and that many computers and that many screens, and then the data analytics that they're doing behind that, it's a really great way to show kids the diversity of the field. Now, it falls under civil engineering, I would guess, but it also falls under technology and a lot of other eye-opening opportunities.
So what are other ways people can get involved?
Looking back over our first 5 years and then thinking about our next 5, we really realized how important volunteers have been in the development of all of our programs. A few months ago, I met a young woman, Adrian, and she'd moved to New York and had a fantastic background in development. And while she was looking for a job in New York, we'd connected through friends, and she was in the office helping us with development. And we came up with this idea that CityScience really needs a young professional board that's more of a working board. It's kind of a common model in nonprofits to have your older board, more traditional board, and your younger kind of working board. We got really creative with our young professionals board. What we're looking for is New Yorkers who have deep experience, knowledge, skills in areas like finance, graphic design, human resources, kind of core business functions. And they join our Young Professionals Board because it's a great networking opportunity for 25 to 35-year-olds. And we have a lot of fun, and we'll go to the bar, and we'll go take fun walking tours, and we'll introduce them to what CityScience is all about. And in the course of this, we scope a project. So to give a very concrete example, Adrienne came in, and her experience had been writing annual reports and doing a lot of collateral and literature for large philanthropic causes. It was a great time to tell our story. So Adrienne helped us scope what a 5-year report would require. What do we need to do? What are the pieces in order to put this together? And then we started looking for volunteers to help Adrienne fulfill this project. So one of the great advances we've made this year is partnering our young professional board members with an organization called Catch a Fire. Catch a Fire specializes in skills-based volunteers. So we're using a skills-based volunteer from Philadelphia to help us write and edit this copy. So Adrienne and Carol in Philadelphia are really doing the lion's share of our 5-year report. We talk bi-weekly in a conference call. We have some Google Docs. We bounce them back and forth. And this is a 1 or 2 month project. And at the end of it, we'll have a very professional, high-quality report that is the product of a local young professional board member who's here with us at CityScience, and a really fantastic woman in Philadelphia who, out of the goodness of her own heart, is volunteering her time and her writing abilities to this project. We've done this with brochures. We've done this linking Google Forms to our Salesforce database. We've done this in several other ways in just the course of a few short months. So one of the most important ways to participate, if you're a young professional in New York, would be to join our Young Professional Board. It's all online. It's a very clear process. And if you're outside of New York and you're listening to this, think about joining Catch a Fire. It's connected through your LinkedIn profile, and it's really a great way to help nonprofits in bite-sized, project-based tasks that are really mission-critical to organizations like CityScience.
If you could go back in time and meet yourself, what would you tell yourself? What have you learned that you could pass on to new startups?
That is a really, really good question. And the Community Resource Exchange just came out with a book on common problems and solutions for NGO or nonprofit executive directors. And I was emailing with the author of the book jokingly, is this a multi-volume book? Because there's a lot of challenges that you face as a nonprofit. But I think the one thing that I would pass along and that I would probably do differently looking back is I would seek to partner with someone with more complementary skills. I think that running a nonprofit requires so many different skill sets that it probably would have been advantageous to CityScience to have a co-founder or to have a wing person, the proverbial, right-hand man, left hand, whatever it is. I think you really can't do it by yourself. So because I was the only founder, I've surrounded myself by mentors. So I think that's a really good way to bridge the gap. You can't know it all, so you have to have people to go to for advice. A really good example of that is in the area of bookkeeping. A really good example of that is in the area of development. A really good example is in the area of board training and development. These are topics that take a lot of time to become a master of. So finding a good mentor or having a good co-founder is really critical.
I want to thank Thor Snilsberg for taking some time to sit down and talk with me today. Make sure that you like us on Facebook and subscribe at BQuinn Podcast on Twitter to get information about upcoming episodes. And with that, I'll see you next time.